Would like to welcome you all. Good evening, all. It's really lovely to see you. A big virtual hug to all of our regular attendees. As you know, I say every week, but I do mean it. It's really uplifting to see your names and your faces on the screen every week. And I'd also like to give a special welcome to those joining us for the first time. Thank you for joining our community, and you are now part of a very special club of people. And these people want to empower themselves with information on how to stay happy and healthy. And God knows we all need that right now, don't we? And even into the future, I think this is something that this whole situation has made us appreciate more, that our health and our happiness is paramount. It's very important. So our well-being is top priority, and you're now part of the special club that it's top priority for. So thank you for coming and being here. And for those of you that are new and have just signed up for this event, we do run free events weekly, and we showcase a specific subject and expert. So we started doing those last April during the first lockdown to help our clients and our community get through these times. And we've continued with them ever since, and we're continuing with them into the future. So I do hope you enjoy your first event with us, and you'll be back to try more out in the future. Everyone's welcome to these events, so spread the word, tell your friends and family. And especially those that would be interested in benefiting from these and hearing expert teachers and doctors like Bruno that we have here today. So I hope you've all had a good week so far and enjoying your Saturday. We're taking kind of baby steps towards the right direction, and we received great news this week that the vaccinations in this country have had a dramatic effect on reducing the hospital admissions and deaths, which is amazing news, right? I mean, I think that's such fantastic news. And I know we've all suffered in some way or other with this situation, but I think we shouldn't forget the real tragedy, which is the loss of life, and also the debilitating illness some people are having with like long COVID symptoms. And we can't lose sight of that. So I feel very grateful, and it's just really great news that we're reducing this now, and we're reducing the loss of life and serious illness. Now, on the travel front, we've had countries such as Greece, Cyprus and Portugal, which have said that they'll be welcoming UK visitors over the summer. And many of them are saying that if you have the vaccination, you won't need to quarantine or have a PCR test. But if you haven't had the vaccination, you can still visit. So they're not banning you from entering the country, but you'll have to have some testing involved. So we're all kind of sitting here patiently waiting for what our government tells us on the 12th of April, which is a very important date in the travel industry, as I'm sure you can imagine. And we'll update you more as soon as we know more, as I know many of you are desperate to start planning and booking your trips for later this year. I know I've spoken to lots of people who are just kind of desperate to get away. But we'll let you know as we find out more. Today, before we just start with our event, I just wanted to do a screen share again, please, because I've just got some updates for you, and it's much easier to do it by sharing the screen. Okay, so this is when you enter now, you log in, you see this screen. I showed many of you this last week, and we're making changes to it as we go along. But I just want to update you on a couple of things with this. Sorry. So our event. So those of you we did a survey about a couple of months ago, about holding movement classes on Wednesday evenings. And we got kind of a resounding yes on that front. Oh, look, there's Bruno there for today. But we're starting that next week with Aliona, our yoga teacher who did the last class, which was amazing, with us on a Saturday. So she's going to be back here, and she'll be doing a class on Wednesday evening at 7 to 8 o'clock. Since you told us that that's what you wanted, we're going to introduce that. And she's still in beautiful Mexico, so she'll be streaming live from Mexico there. And then we have some other things coming along. They're not all loaded yet. This is a paid course. This is one we're doing with Claudia on mental and emotional detox. We had an introductory talk about that last week. And if you, let me just flip over here to groups, because I'm always talking about groups to you, but I just want to show you what's going on. Excuse the slowness of my computer. So in groups here, we've introduced an emotional and mental well-being group. And if you look in this group, which is a public group, you can all access this. There is the recording from last week from Claudia's session, if you didn't see that, for you to catch up on. But I think Amanda, you're here today, but you did ask for an article summarising all the points that we didn't actually get to cover last week, which Claudia has posted here now, so you can access that there. Another important thing on groups is that in the yoga group, we've started a theme, because we like themes here. So we're doing a theme for March, which is backbends, and it's all about expanding your chest, your lungs. It's uplifting. So every week we post a specific pose. This week it's Cobra. Last week it was Sphinx. And there's Dominica's dog again doing the yoga poses. But we, along this theme, are running the event with Aliona, the class with Aliona. So it's all going to be about opening the chest and helping with breathing, lungs, and also heart opening. So very good for those of us who are at the desk all day like this. So it really helps us open up there. Another thing on groups, just so that you know, and I'm just kind of telling you all this, I'm encouraging you to look at the groups every now and again, is in nutrition, we're now posting seasonal ingredients with their benefits. So we have chicory this week, and the benefits of chicory. So we'll be doing that frequently. And on that front, we've got Candice's classes, master classes, our cookery classes with superfoods ready to go. And that the first one will be not this Thursday coming, the Thursday after. So that will be posted very shortly in the next few days. So you'll be able to access those. Right, okay, enough sharing. Now, the reason that you're really here, which is to meet with Bruno. So we'll get going. Oh, actually, before I forget, please, can I please ask you to post reviews after these events, because they really do help when people are looking to look at the recordings, and yeah, it's just very helpful. So if you can just give us a couple of minutes to put reviews after, if you enjoyed it, of course. So today we are very, very lucky to have Professor Bruno Ribeiro with us, and Bruno has a very impressive bio. And he's the head of the Cognitive and Emotional Health Development Unit at SHA Wellness Clinic in Spain. He has a doctorate in clinical psychology, and he's a professor at the University of Murcia. And he is a member of a research group there on psychobiology and behavioural neurobiology. Wow, It's a lot of stuff there, Bruno. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I was amazed. Thank you very much for your invitation. It's a big pleasure to be with such a nice group. I was amazed with your presentation of your website that you just show us, because it's very similar to the content to the SHA Wellness Clinic website. It's amazing.
Oh, so really? Well, good.
What you are promoting is exactly all the kind of things that we believe that will make us be strong and also face this situation, and that will help us to live longer and in better conditions. Congratulations for your work.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you. We try our best to keep everybody healthy as much as we can. So now I would like for you, please, to explain to us what exactly all these terms mean. So what exactly does what is a clinical psychologist? Because I know you run a department at the University of Murcia, as well as being at SHA Wellness Clinic, so you're a busy man and you have students. I know when I spoke to you last time, you were with your students online too.
Yes.
But what is clinical psychology? Let's get to that first.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. In my case, I start my studies in clinical psychology. Clinical psychology is the part of the psychology that is dedicated exactly to human behavior and what a kind of problems human behavior can have. So that's the main idea. The psychology is a big family in which we have work psychology, psychology of groups, and so on and so on and so on. So in this particular case of clinical psychology is where we exactly study the human behavior and the problems that the human behavior can have in our life. In my case, I have done the next step. I became a clinical neuropsychologist, that is even more complex. In this case, clinical neuropsychologist, what we try to do is explain the behavior, explain what is happening to us based on what is happening in our brain, trying to find the substrate of our behaviors. And when we have any problem in our brain, what a kind of behavior will be changed in our personality.
Okay, I understand. Now we're having some comments here about the sound. There's maybe we can ask you to just speak up a little bit, because I know we had an issue, like we couldn't, not everyone can hear you very well. So maybe, maybe I don't know.
Speak a little
louder. Sorry, Bruno, we don't want you to lose your voice. And then you go home to your family and you can't speak to them this evening.
That's
so it'd be a shame.
Let's try like this. I'm sorry.
That's very good. That's very good. Yeah. So, so the clinical part.
Yes.
Explain the difference. What's the difference between a psychologist and a clinical psychologist?
Okay, a psychologist can try to study every details of behavior. A clinical psychologist is much more focused on when we have some kind of change in our behavior. Okay, a psychologist can explain the normal behavior, a clinical psychologist can explain a depression.
Okay.
Or an anxiety. And in which way we can try to help and change our behaviors, adapt our behaviors in a way that we can recover our balance.
Okay. Okay, I think we understand. And what is the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist?
That's a good one. So mainly psychiatrists came from the schools of medicine. Psychologists came from a school of psychology. And then after being a general practitioner, they decided to dedicate to study psychology. So they became psychiatrists. In this case, psychiatrists, the main tool that they have is using psychopharmacology, is the using of drugs, of medication to try to change some kind of imbalance in our brain. By other hand, a clinical psychologist, well, what we will try to do is find why we have this imbalance in our brain, and now can we try to regain this balance using our own change in our behavior, like having some tools to make you rebalance again.
I understand. Okay, so one veers towards medication, and
Exactly.
the other is tools and techniques. Well, personally, I prefer the tools and techniques, but sometimes, I guess, when we talked about this, you said sometimes people are at the point where nothing will work apart from medication, right?
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Stella. By the way, in our unit here in SHA, we have a psychiatrist.
Okay.
The unit is composed by a psychiatrist, by a psychologist, by a stress management therapist, and by myself. So the main idea is to work on team. And exactly, let's try first to evaluate our patients to see if they need medication. We prefer a first approach. We prefer to use natural substances, some kind of vitamins, some kind of natural plants to try to help you to boost a little in this. We are talking about depression, but in this case to improve a little your mood. But if finally, if we have a situation in which we really think that the medication is the best way, of course, we will use medication.
Okay, but it's kind of last resort, right? It's the last. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, it's not. Of course, you say of course there, but it's not. Of course, in a lot of places. A lot of places, it isn't. It's maybe prioritized as a form of treatment rather than psychology. It's that they are medication is very easily.
Of course, we really understand. We have lots of cases. Yes, absolutely. What we try is, Stella, you're absolutely right. When some patient came to SHA, at least we decide what we're going to do in terms of medication or not medication, we will have these patients doing tests, talking with us at least 2 hours.
Wow.
That's usually much more time that you usually spend after 10 years of jumping from a psychiatrist to another psychiatrist.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course.
It's very important to really know have that first image of how is the life of our patients.
Yeah, sure. Now you have an interest in new technologies applied to cognitive and cerebral stimulation. What does that mean?
Okay, so I try to be an old-fashioned guy, but at the same time an avant-garde, and try to mix these both ideas. By one hand, we really like to use here in SHA what we know from old knowledge from let's say Chinese medicine, or using some plants, some therapeutic plants, but we also like to use the last technologies that are available. So in the last probably 20-25 years, neuroscience has grown enormously. Because we have right now techniques that we don't need to invade the body to know what is happening inside the body. Techniques like the MRI that allowed us to have amazing images in high definition of our brain, allowed us to know exactly, to see small differences, small changes in our brain before and after a treatment. So that allowed us to use this technology to help people rebalance again and find the best version that they want to show to the world. I will put an example because I think you will remember. An example, EEG, electroencephalogram. That's not new. It's something that exists for a long time ago. But I remember the first machine that we have in the University of EEG was a big, very big machine that prints lots of papers that then we have to sit in the table, analyze all this data, and for one patient we probably will take 2 or 3 hours only to check and find exactly if we can notice any difference. Right now, with these modern technologies, I have a device, an EEG device that is like this. There is something like this that with a headband, with some sensors, with dry sensors, we don't need to wet your head. With dry sensors, we can measure in real time your brain activity. And this allowed us to put our patients to do some different stuff, like try to relax, and we will see. Oh, we don't have changes, so this person don't know how to relax. Try to count, try to focus, and we see if we have changes in our brain pattern, or we force some conversation about what is the most challenging thing that you have to face in this 2021, and we will see if we have the right values in anxiety or stress, or this person is really overwhelmed with all situations. So completely different approaches based on technology.
Amazing. It's so fascinating that you could just put something on your head now and basically see how our brains are. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the brain, okay? Because we don't really hear much about the brain, because arguably it's the most important organ in our body, okay? And we keep being told what we can do to reduce heart disease, what we can do to reduce risk of getting cancer, all these other things, but no one really talks about how can we look after our brain health. We don't really hear much about that.
Absolutely.
So
right, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, if you don't mind. And it is the most important organ, right? Of course, you're going to say yes, aren't you?
I think so. I have one of my brains here with me.
You brought one along to show us.
By the way, usually when I have to give any conference in another country, I take this with me in my baggage. So once I think was not in England. I think was I think it was in Sweden. So a guy that is from Portugal, that is coming from Spain to give us a conference, and have this kind of model inside the luggage. Why you travel with your brain? I always travel with my brain. You don't travel with your brain?
I love it.
Do you have any drugs inside your brain? Sir, I hope not. I'm clear. I'm sober.
I love it.
Amazing. Yes.
So the brain is super important, right?
Yeah, of course.
And there are two things that I would like to cover today whilst we talk about the brain. How can we, firstly, what can we do now, today, that we have reasonably healthy brains, to get the most out of our brains right now? So in other words, how can we stay sharp? How can we be our best selves, whatever that means? How can we reduce a little bit of memory loss that we have? What are the main tools that we can follow now, today, to keep our brains healthy?
Million question.
Yeah, $1 million question.
In one sentence, you want to
Can you?
thesis.
Yeah. Can I ask you something else? Sorry, I'm being a pain with your volume. Can you turn something because your volumes come really high, but it's distorted a little bit now. Can you take it down in between?
Of course. You make me talk about my brain. I start to talk too loud. Okay. Oh, let's try like this.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. That's good.
Okay. So, what we can do to keep our brain in good health? Okay. Let's ask to the brain. What is the first thing that we can see when we see our brain? That we have lots of veins and arteries. That's the first thing. So, what that means? That means that, let's say that our brain, the weight of our brain is 1 kilo, 350 grams, more or less. Our body, let's say that our weight is 70, 60 kilos. So we are talking about very low percentage of our body, and that uses more than between 10 and 20% of all our energy. And also a big part of our blood. So it's very, very, one of the main things is keep our cardiovascular system in good health. Sometimes we have people that came to SHA with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, and we discovered that they don't have an Alzheimer's disease. What they have is a cardiovascular dementia. That is different. Probably the prognostic is not much better, but is treated completely in a different way. Okay, so it's very, very important to try to be active. Try to at least 3-4 times a week, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 1 hour of moderate exercise to keep these veins, to keep these arteries in good shape. Of course, in the same direction, we must avoid all the toxics that can make this cardiovascular system not working well, like cigarettes, like abusing from alcohol, or not taking care of our diet.
Can I ask you, when you say abusing alcohol, what everyone has a different interpretation of that. What does that mean? What do you see as too much alcohol?
Okay. What we really think of and what we are saying right now in this moment of this pandemic is that some patients are using alcohol as a self-medication. Okay, we know that alcohol can help to release, at least momentarily, our levels of anxiety, our stress levels. So we are seeing lots of patients taking alcohol on a daily basis. Our philosophy says that we are not fundamentalists saying that let's not use alcohol, let's not drink, but we like our patients to have the best bottle of wine every 2 weeks. Okay? Instead of drinking on a daily basis, why not, when you celebrate, when we have a celebration, why not have a very good wine? Okay? That means that we are not using on a daily basis, we are not using as a self-medication, we are using to celebrate. That doesn't mean that we drink until we become drunk.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's reframing it. It's reframing the use of the alcohol from something that makes you feel as a crutch, from a crutch to something that is, you use it to celebrate, to make, to celebrate a good event, a birthday, an achievement, or something like that, rather than, okay, that's really good advice.
Stella,
So I
think all of us are adults.
Yeah.
So we know that we cannot have a fundamentalist view on this.
Yeah.
Let's accept that we can enjoy the taste of a good wine with some good friends, but let's also accept that can be transformed in a way in which I don't have my skills, I don't have my own skills to relax myself, to calm myself down. So I will use alcohol to do that. That's what we really don't like.
Yeah. So let's move. Sorry, I took you on alcohol because it's an interesting subject, and loads of people use it as a crutch. But let's go back to what you were saying. So obviously, stop smoking, reduce your alcohol, do exercise. I mean, these are all the things that they tell us to do for our cardiovascular health, our health of our heart. What else can be done to keep us healthy?
What we know is that a good support in terms of vitamins, in terms of omega-3, will be very useful for our brain. Not only for our body, but for our brain. As you know, here in SHA, we recommend to really reduce the intake of meat. But we also know that some kind of vitamins in the normal diet, they became mostly from meat, eggs, and milk. Of course, we recommend our patients to avoid this kind of things in the diet. Not only because the element, the meat, the milk, but the way the humans now make meat.
Yeah.
So sometimes what we see here is very low levels of vitamin B in our blood.
Vitamin B?
B,
B for Bravo. Okay. Yeah.
What that means? That means that not having a good advice, I decided to become vegetarian or vegan. Not taking care that I need to supply or to include new kind of different vegetables in my diet to try to sustain my levels of vitamin B or omega-3. That kind of lack of vitamin B can leave a very similar frame in terms of symptoms of a dementia. We don't have a dementia, we have a lack of vitamin B.
Which B in particular? B12, or we're not going there?
B12 is the one that is most absorbed by brain, but all the B complex is what we recommend.
B complex, okay. The B complex is the one that we should be having. Yes. And specifically, if we've moved away from having animal produce, specifically, we need to supplement with that. And what you're saying, I think that is fascinating. What you're saying, that some people come in with the symptoms of dementia and they actually just have a vitamin B deficiency. That's just so interesting. Yeah.
Everyone, okay, not everyone, I'm sorry. 90% of the population of some countries have low levels of vitamin, in this case, D.
D, yeah. We have that here.
I know. That's why I'm trying to tell you that.
Yeah.
Vitamin D is absolutely important also to our nervous system, to the good functioning of our nervous system. By the way, I don't know. I can see lots of photos here from the audience. We probably had similar ages. I don't know when you were in your childhood, if your mom and dad or the grandmom or bias to take codfish oil.
Yes, disgusting. Yes,
Disgusting vitamin D and omega-3.
Yeah, I was forced to take that.
Right now, I'm so smart. That's the
so clever. Now we realise how clever that was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how much? There's some questions here, like how much vitamin D do you recommend on a daily basis? Vitamin D is just so underrated. Only now are doctors and the medical profession really talking about vitamin D. I'm not talking about the people at SHA because you're way ahead, but just generally the medical profession is only now. I mean, we hear that over here with regards to coronavirus, how so many people who had a bad response to the virus had low vitamin D levels. So there's a big question around that. How
Absolutely.
How much do you think people should have daily, especially if people in the Northern Hemisphere who don't?
That's a very good question. I will not give you a value. What I'm going to say, I will use the case of vitamin C in this case. The World Health Organization says that we need 70 milligrams. Okay, let's between 50 and 80 milligrams per day of vitamin C. What we know that we recommend is at least 1 gram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I take. 1 gram is okay. 1,000 milligrams. Yeah.
And when we are a little down in terms of immunitary system, we can increase. That's not completely my field, but it's something that we are studying a lot here, also in SHA, and also in lots of societies of integrative medicine. And what we know is that people with better levels of vitamin C and vitamin D have better ways to cope with COVID. An example, these 2 simple vitamins. Here we must see not only the brain, but we must see the whole body. In this case, what is good for the body is good for the brain.
Okay. So you would say definitely, would you suggest everyone should get a vitamin D test to see if they're deficient?
Absolutely.
And then look at that. And then you're hesitant to say how much people should take, but have a look at what your deficiency is and maybe speak to
2 and 4,000 units a day. I didn't say nothing.
Okay. So, and it's not we can't get enough of these vitamins through our diet, right? Because we're getting these questions coming up on chat.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. If you have 365 orange trees in your garden and you can eat all the orange off.
Yeah.
We are using these vitamins with a medicinal purpose, with a therapeutic purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's important to mention that.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the vitamin part for our brain health.
Yeah.
What else can we do to keep our brains healthy?
Challenging our brain every day.
Okay.
We don't need big challenges. So, Bruno, do you want me to learn Russian? No, it's not that. Wait. We like that kind of challenge, but sometimes patients here, small challenge like try to walk backyards. Try to move in a different way. Little things like I usually start with my shirt and then my pants, or I will change.
Interesting.
Trying to make small calculations with the plates of the cars. anything that challenges your brain. So we don't need to go, oh, I need to do Sudokus 1 hour a day. It's not that. Challenging all the time our brain. An example, let's imagine that Julie wants to do a transfer, money transfer. Usually with our mobile phone appears a code that now the smartphones, that code immediately appears in the web page. So we don't have to memorize. No, let's force us to memorize a small code and then try to. These very small steps are very important to keep us.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because before the days... Oh, sorry, carry on.
A big one, dancing. Dancing is amazing to our brain. Imagine that when we are trying to dance, for men is even worse, but the areas that we highlight in our brain when we are trying to dance are so many. So let's imagine that I'm listening to music. So the auditory cortex becomes active. Then I'm trying to find a rhythm in that music. So much more areas related with mathematics are become active. Then I'm trying to learn a new way to move myself, a new pattern of movement. So my motor cortex, my motor primary cortex are become more active. And then I'm not working only with one side of my body. I'm working with both sides. So both hemispheres of the brain are becoming active. Then I have to correct my own movement. So I have completely activate the sensors in my body that release the information in my brain. So the sensitive cortex is also very active. Then I have my visual cortex that I'm trying to see in a model, in YouTube, or to see in my teacher what he's doing and try. Is an amazing fireworks in our brain when we are trying to dance. And we are enjoying.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, my parents started to learn the tango in their 70s as a way to keep their brains active. And I've seen how amazing it is for them. It's so interesting. Coming back to your point before about memorizing the codes, I mean, in the old days, before the days of these phones, we had to memorize telephone numbers, right, when we were calling people. And now, you know, I remember I used to know so many phone numbers. I'm showing my age, but I used to know so many phone numbers. Now, if you ask me, what's so-and-so's phone number, I haven't got a clue, because I become so reliant on this.
Yes,
so that's another reason to do that. And things like you said, doing things differently, you know, maybe taking a different route where you're walking somewhere or driving somewhere, or just challenging your brain to do things different from routine every day is what you're saying. Do something different every day. Not many people do that. We're not aware of that.
You mentioned, Stella, very important word, routine. If we what we do in our daily lives is only routine, we are not creating any new synapses. Synapses is the connections between two neurons. Every time that we are moving out from our routine, we are challenging our brain.
Very good. So everybody has to do something new every day. A change in their routine. That's
why that's probably doing Sudokus. Every day, you will be good doing Sudokus, but that will not be the kind of challenge that our brain needs, because all the time we are using the same patterns, the same ways in our brain. So let's do some Sudokus, but then let's do some mix words, or let's do playing some games. There's a lot of applications, lots of apps with some games that are amazing. Challenge our brain, not allowing us to follow our daily routine. Is one of them.
change up the daily routine. How about resting our brain? That's kind of the opposite of challenging our brain. How important is that?
Absolutely, absolutely right, and is one of the most important things. There's for me two big aspects, two very important aspects in the way we rest and how important is resting for our memory and for our brain. By one hand, sleeping is absolutely important. And sometimes sleeping patterns change with age. So in our case here in SHA, and talking about technology, what we use to some of our patients is a ring, a very simple ring, in which that the first day that the patient comes to SHA, have this ring, and this ring will measure the sleep of our patients, the temperature, the heart rate variability, the movement, and will tell us for this patient which are the better indications, the better advice for this patient. So a ring, something as simple as a ring, used to improve sleep. Sleep is absolutely important. Sleep is when we are sleeping that we move our short-term memory to long-term memory. Is one of the processes. We need to sleep to really memorize things in a long-term way. It's also during the sleep, because when we are sleeping, our brain is not, don't stop working, works in a different way. Mm-hmm. So during the sleep is also when lots of toxins are removed from brain. Okay, that's the sleep part. But also during our day, it's very important to find ways to really disconnect from what we are doing. One of the biggest problems that we have is that, I don't know if in your case, but some of our patients have big responsibilities, big companies, and they are responsible for lots of families. So sometimes they bring problems home. Even during the day, they cannot disconnect. This is absolutely important. One of the tests that we do here in SHA with this kind of technology is to see if you are able to disconnect easily, if you have skills to disconnect by yourself. Here we are talking about breathing techniques that came from yoga, pranayama, and so on, but also mindfulness techniques from meditation. This is very important. We are not talking about think in a white wall during 1 hour. It's not like that. That's not meditation. You know, your guesses know very well. We are talking about being the present, concentrate, focus on breathing, and do this 5-10 minutes. That's doable for everyone. So resting is very, very important because allows our brain to pass memories from short-term memory to long-term memory. Even some is amazing that we didn't understand what is happening in our brain until a few years ago. But during the sleep, sometimes we can solve some problems in our life. Okay. So it's Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best players in the world. We talk about this, and he mentioned, yes, sometimes I imagine how I'm going to do this movement. So I try to do the perfect movement, to imagine the perfect movement during my sleep. That happens also to us sometimes. Sometimes we dream about how to solve a problem, or sometimes we dream about the problem that we didn't know that we have.
Yeah, that's true. The one that pops up that you're not sure is.
Yes, we didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sleeping and resting is absolutely important.
Okay, so I mean, there's advice out there about sleeping, but what do you recommend? Number of hours for an adult? like a middle-aged and upwards adult? Because a lot of people say, oh, as I get older, I need less sleep. But is that actually true?
Yes, in part is true. But we need at least, there's some very rare cases that patients that need less sleep, but we are talking about 7 hours at least. 7 hours, if we can have a registry of how much REM sleep we have, how much light sleep we have, how much deep sleep we have, that will be perfect.
Yeah.
But 7 hours can be a good average for the biggest part of the population of middle age.
So the other thing we have now with this, especially with this situation we're in now, is people working from home a lot. It's very easy to just get completely sucked in by work and looking at screens all day. You know, it's like, again, that routine has shifted from going to a workplace, breaking here, going to get coffee or whatever. It's just people suck. What's your advice around resting the brain throughout the day?
Okay. Another very good question, Stella. What we know, let me talk first about data. So everyone knows what is melatonin. Melatonin is an hormone that we release mainly when we go to sleep. That have a circadian rhythm, that means that have a rhythm of 24 hours. That melatonin is very high when we go to sleep and is very low when we wake up. Okay. Near our eyes, just below our eyes, there's a nucleus, a group of cells that detect the light. And these cells, what they do is saying, let's release melatonin, let's stop releasing melatonin, based on how much light we are seeing. Everyone knows how big is an iPad, correct? Mm-hmm. An iPad can reduce 50% of the melatonin release when we go to sleep. An iPad.
Wow.
My screen is much bigger than an iPad. Sometimes we have big screens. Sometimes we have some difficulties to see. So what we do is increase the brightness of our screens. So imagine what we are doing to our melatonin. This simple tip. Let's try to avoid screens, this kind of screens, 1.5 hours, at least 1.5 hours before we go to sleep. Very simple.
It sounds simple, doesn't it? I think it's
but also this one, because you see that the big companies start to do something about it. What they do, they have the night shift in which they change the color of the screen, but sometimes that's not enough. The length of light is so strong that really makes our melatonin goes down. An example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it is, of course, the work and the distraction of the iPhone with everything that's on there, the social media and the rest of it. But it's just the way people live their lives. Like they watch TV before they go to sleep. It just TV is the same, right? It counts as the same thing. Yeah. And so,
in two ways. The first one, the lights. We really like to have a big TV in our house, okay? So lots of lights projecting to our suprachiasmatic nuclei in our eye, but also depends on what we are seeing. Because if we have this reduction in melatonin, and if we are seeing something that is related to the last news about COVID numbers and that someone dies, that we have this new war. So this also activates our adrenal glands.
Yeah.
Adrenaline and cortisol.
Yeah.
And it's very important to take this into account because high levels of these substances plus low levels of melatonin, what we have is an aging process that is become more strong.
So you're aging, your brain is aging quicker.
More than what says my passport.
Okay, I mean I'm so pleased you said that in a very direct way, in that if you're looking at screens continuously and then having high cortisol levels, so lower melatonin levels and higher cortisol levels equals age brain, basically. Brain aging, I say. See, I knew, got it muddled up. Brain aging. So,
of course, there is no problems if we are using a screen during the daylight period. Because it's similar, the kind of light that I receive from the nature, from being outside, and here. What is not normal is that my brain detects that it's already, we have starting the night, and we are forcing this light into my eyes.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And so there are these glasses out now with these like orange lenses. Have you seen these ones? I mean, they help a little bit, and I'm sure they help a bit. But
they try to reduce. But there's another question. There's another situation. Why not trying to adjust our work to the daylight?
Yeah. Well, it's not just work though, Bruno. It's lifestyle. It's lifestyle. It's like, you know, not being able to, like the addiction to whatever's on the phone.
Of course.
Lifestyle of the TV and all of that. So it's finding different things like reading a book or doing some yoga in the evening or meditating for a walk. It's just it's changing your life in a way in the evenings before you go to.
And trying to change behavior is so important.
Say that again, sorry?
That's why it's so important to try to change our behavior.
Yes. And that's why you're a psychologist.
Not using a pill. Because it's very easy. We can take a pill of melatonin.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like
the question is, if I start to take melatonin in night doses, again, more than 2 milligrams, I will reduce my own gland to produce my own melatonin.
Yeah.
A long-last effect, it will be that I have a gland that is not releasing the concentration of melatonin that I need. So I will have problems to sleep.
So the answer is
everything is very complex.
Yeah, no, it's complex, but the brain is very super powerful, isn't it? So don't take melatonin because it's going to stop you, you know, using your making your own melatonin, so to speak. I feel like
not exactly like that. Until 2 milligrams, we can take melatonin.
Until 2 milligrams. But the best thing is to change our behavior so that we can
change our behavior, and we need to be our priority.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to be our priority.
So listen, I'm going to move it on because we're already at an hour and I've got so much more to ask you. Can you give us another 10, 15 minutes?
Let's try.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just that it's such an interesting subject. So the other thing is, we talked about this dementia and Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. So many people have that. It's like such a prevalent disease now with the aging population. And, you know, you can look at it and say, well, people are living longer and that's why they've got that. So that could be one reason. But is there another reason? Is it through lifestyle over the years that make people have this, you know, that these diseases come about? What's your view on that?
Okay, this is a very complex situation that we have. I agree with you, and I agree with my colleagues that do research that lots of problems, every kind of problems that we have in our body, we will have more problems if we don't take care of ourselves, because the lifespan increases amazingly. So if the lifespan increases amazingly, if I expect that my kids, I expect to live 100 years, and I expect that my kids live 110, 115 years, it seems like this is the limit. So we will be more predisposed to have problems in my joints, in my muscles, but also in my brain. Okay, we must accept this. If we behave as we have been behaving until now. Okay, then we have another interesting thing that we call genetics. So there's a very important factor that is the genetic code that we have, genetic predisposition to some diseases. What that means? Let's imagine that we are driving a car. And we are driving a car in a motorway, and we put the car at 90 miles per hour. That means that we're going to have an accident? No. We are driving like a crazy, but that doesn't mean that we will have an accident. Let's imagine that we are driving in the same motorway, and we are driving the same car, but we decided to go 40 miles per hour. That means that we don't gonna have an accident? No, we can have an accident. But it seems logical that the guy that is driving 90 miles per hour is more predisposed to have an accident than the person that is driving 40 miles per hour. That's what happened with our genetics. We can have some predisposition or not to have some kinds of dementia. But that doesn't mean that we will have that dementia. And people that have low predisposition to dementia, that doesn't mean that they will not have dementia. Because what we know is that some factors in our life can make be more predisposed or not to certain kind of diseases. The guy that is driving at 40 kilometers per hour, probably he can have a problem in the wheels, in the tires, or in the brakes. And he will have an accident and is not related with speed. So in this case, we need to take all these into account. So a lifespan that is increasing so much in our countries. Also, this possible genetic predisposition, and we need to decide to move on and take care of our brain and our body. What that means? We must take care with our diet, we must take care with our physical exercise, with our sleep, we must take care if we are exposed to heavy metals. Do we have any metals in our mouth? In the cavities, what we have in our cavities, an example. Am I taking a good supplementation that is tailored for me? Do I have high levels of stress? Am I having good ways to cope my stress levels? How is my libido? My sexuality is important too. Do I have a good social network? One of the best studies that I ever saw was presented in the World Longevity Forum, and what they concluded in that study is that people with good network and people with a purpose are the one that have more longevity. So with all this information, we need to try to decide a plan for my life, and to know that probably right now I will probably live lots of years. So I must be prepared and prepare my body for these years that I still have.
That's brilliant advice, because not only do we then become a burden to ourselves, we become a burden to others if we don't look after ourselves now as much as we can, and I think that's and what you've just described with that lifestyle is being happy and healthy. I mean, it's both those things combined, because you can be super healthy just from your body, but you can be unhappy, and that doesn't help either.
Absolutely. So lots of stories that people decide to not live. I'm not talking about suicide. I'm talking people that become very sad and they decide to don't live. They are home, but we see that they like a light that is fading down slowly. That's what we see.
Yeah. And okay, so one more thing before you go, because I'm looking at those things on those helmets behind you.
Yes.
Now, when people come to SHA, SHA, we've been working with SHA for many, many years, since they first started. So SHA is an incredible place for integral health. So with an integrated approach. So they have doctors, but we've had Philippa on before talking about Chinese medicine, and now you, and so they have doctors, but they take a very holistic approach with health, and people go there specifically to become healthier and change habits and really learn on how to be healthier. And they, I would say they're in the top 5 in the world places to go and do that. They're the best of the best. Now, when they come to SHA, and they come, for example, to do a weight loss program or do a detox program or stress management program, then they say, they have a consultation with a doctor, and then they may say, oh, I'm forgetting things. Or I've had a diagnosis of early dementia or Alzheimer's, and that's when they come and see you, right? Or they come and see you when they want to really increase their brain function and be the best with their brain function. So you use all these tools like these helmets and things to determine where they are. Can you just talk about a little bit about that, please?
Of course. Stella, first let me tell you that, of course, when someone decides to come to SHA, he must have a priority that he wants to try to achieve here in SHA. Let's say that is a detox program. Let's say that is a physical activity program. Let's say that's an anti-stress program. Let's say that's a rebalance program or whatever. Once you are here in SHA, you will have a GP that will be your doctor. So you come to SHA and you will meet our some nurse that will ask some questions. Then you will see the doctor, and the doctor will ask you about your priorities, and with some questions he will identify what you need. Okay, then you have a third person that is your agenda planner. Your agenda planner also, with the indications of the doctor and the nurse, will ask you some very key questions, and will recommend you, doctor, nurse, and agenda planner will recommend you some treatments. And with all this information, what we try is to tailor a program for you, give you exactly what you need. Okay? If what you need is to really relax, so we will try to increase the treatments in wellness area that we have. If you have a very specific need in terms of health, we will try to increase and give you the right treatments in the clinic area. Trying always making your journey funny. Okay? So let's imagine that someone comes to SHA and we detect that he must have a consultation in the cognitive unit here in SHA. One of the first things I will show you, I have it here. What we do, I don't know if you can read. What we will try to check is to have a neuro psychiatric interview evaluation, in which we will try to know a little better about this person. In this interview that was developed with collaboration with some universities, we also will ask you about digestion, stress, heavy metals, family, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. So we will have a very nice conversation for at least 1 hour. Then, with this first picture of the patient, we will decide probably to do a cognitive test. These tests that we try to memorize things, we must pay attention to certain details. The one that we use is one that was developed from University of Cambridge, a neuropsychological battery. For me, is one of the best in the world. So it was one of my colleagues in the University of Cambridge that developed this tool. And you will be working with the screen, trying to memorize, and we will measure your skills, your cognition. So we have the second photo that increases the information with the first photo, the neuropsychiatric interview, and knowing a little more about your habits. Usually after that, we decide what kind of treatments or what kind of other tests we will have. One of the tests that we usually do is a very simple test that we call neurofeedback. It's neurofeedback that is based on EEG, in which I will try to see how your brain waves are functioning. This is a very simple. We have a theater here, so we bring the patient to the cinema. We will attach a very simple headband, and we can check what a kind of brain waves he is producing in that precise moment. But let's imagine that we have someone that have a phobia, that develops a phobia, or have a big fear about kids, about losing kids, or if the kids get hurt or whatever. We also have in this neurofeedback system that allowed us to check if you have any height phobia. So you are seeing a movie, in this case done by David Attenborough, that have lots of different aspects of our day life, but all these scenes are masked with animals. So we are seeing like a bear having the two puppies, and we see how they interact each other. So for us, it's very easy to have some kind of thought that make us feel a little more blue or more happy, or we move it away from that scene. So that helps us to know a little better how, if you have any height phobia or if you have some obsessions. So let's imagine that we need another test like an MRI. We can do here an MRI. In this case, we have an open MRI that is less claustrophobic, and we can have a picture of your brain. So let's imagine also that in this neuropsychiatric interview, we realize that your mom and your grandmom have Alzheimer's disease. So it's mandatory to ask a genetic test to see if you also have that predisposition, because we have a big fear that the same will happen to you as you saw because you take care of your mom. Okay, it's very important. It's absolutely important to have a very good picture in the beginning to know exactly what kind of needs have this patient. Then it's very easy. After this, it's very easy. An example. Let's talk with this guy from the middle. Okay, this guy, one of the treatments. So this is a technology developed by NASA that uses a very specific length of light that imitates the light of the middle of the day and injects this light directly to our brain. So this is very useful if you live in London. You don't have enough light. One of our recommendations to have a good amount of light is having at least 15 minutes of light in 60% of our body. That's very difficult in these days. So we must imagine that our body was developed, at least in part, miles and miles, thousands years ago, and we don't have this kind of clothes when we live in caves, so we take much more sun. So very simple, this calls photobiomodulation. So we use a very specific length of light to energize our brain. An example, but let's talk about another guy.
That's really interesting.
This guy, okay. This guy have a very nice cap. You see that this is like a map, lots of holes. Okay, this map that we have here allows us to know which areas of brain we have, imagining that we are in our head. So this all make me understand that I have the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex down this area. So this is like a map. So what I'm going to use is something like, let me check if I have it here. Yes, I have it. We can use some sensors or some electrodes that I will put in very specific places. An example, to stimulate some areas of my brain. Let's say that I have a depression. What we know that happens to our brain in a depression is that both hemispheres become unbalanced. So I will rebalance our hemispheres. I will not use an antidepressant at the beginning. I will use the stimulation and try to make your own body recover. Let's imagine that we have a stroke. We know exactly where is the stroke. So what we're going to try is to stimulate that area that have the stroke. So all these tools that we have.
So interesting, Bruno. It
all
really
these tools
is.
Plus therapy.
Plus therapy. So
everything is done with psychotherapy.
Right. Okay.
We want to try to help to fix our patients.
Right.
But at the same time, we want that when you go back home, you have a long life experience in which you know some tips and some tools to continue your recovery or to continue to be the best version of yourself.
Fantastic, brilliant. And just one final word of advice to people on, because you mentioned this to me, and I think it's important everyone is aware of it. If you get a diagnosis on dementia or Alzheimer's, it isn't 100% that that's going to be what's wrong with you. That you have come across lots of misdiagnoses based on people who were actually depressed or people who had vitamin deficiencies or the like. So you would just advise people either to come to SHA or to get second opinions, right? Or look at
Absolutely.
other, yeah. Okay.
I really agree with you, Stella. We cannot base a lifelong diagnosis in 20 minutes.
Yeah. In a quick 30-minute
diagnose for all your life.
Yeah.
And we probably need more than 20 minutes consultation to see exactly what you have and what you need.
Yeah.
So please, let's really take care of our brain, and let's take this seriously, because we have lots of diagnoses from England that we are not totally agreeing with that kind of diagnosis. Again, sometimes the diagnosis that we achieve here, that we find here, they don't have a much better prognostic. That doesn't mean that is best, but it's not that one.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know that sometimes some words they are so heavy that really make our mood and our motivation disappears.
Yeah, I mean that's really it, isn't it? It's like when people say something, it can get into our create the synapses and get become something that we believe. And but thank you so much for this. We kept you longer than we expected. It's such a great subject, and you've been just so informative and interesting to listen to. I could have you here for another hour. We could go on and on about this subject, but maybe if anyone.
Was an amazing group. I see lots of very faces that show lots of interest in this kind of field. So count on me if you decided to go more deep in a specific subject. I'm here to help, and it's a pleasure also to receive any of your listeners here in SHA. Would be a pleasure.
We would love to send people to you when we can. So if anyone wants to go to SHA, let us know, and you will have the opportunity to meet Professor Ribeiro when you're there. So thank you so much again for being with us. Thank you everybody for taking time to come, to dedicate time to lead a happier and healthier life. I mean, it's so important, and don't underestimate. You could spend that hour doing something else, drinking a glass of wine by the TV, but you didn't. You came and listened to this really interesting information. So congratulations to you too.